For me, it's a wonderful moment in this novel because you have in a very small space you have Kate, who she's so touched because she discovers the real reason why Michael loves all these dwarfs. That's the family, and afterwards you have all the wit and with the funny situation, and it's nearby the two feelings.
Right.
First of all, the family. What does it mean for these three children? Perhaps also for you in nowadays.
Well, family is the core of the book for me, and the core of the series.
The three are orphans. It seems to them that they are orphans. They aren't orphans, but
they are.
Yeah.
And growing up, I mean, I had quite a close family growing up with my sisters and my family. I now live 3,000 miles away from the rest of my family.
Yeah.
And my sisters had children back in Virginia. And so I think when I was writing the book as well, and talking to a lot of friends of mine as well, because in America, it is all over the world now, I think we live in kind of a sort of a deracinated society where everybody moves a lot for work, and you can live a long way away from your family in a way it never happened before. And I think family today is strangely more important than it's ever been before because it's so much harder to hold on to.
Yeah.
So part of me, I really wanted to write a book where that was at the core.
Yeah.
And you had three children who really, they only had themselves.
Yeah.
And they had to like make their family work throughout.
Yeah.
And in writing this section too, I felt that the interesting thing about family and people you're very close to as well, you can know them very well, but they can also have secrets that you actually don't know about. And you're always discovering new elements of your brothers and sisters and your parents. I mean, now that I'm 38 years old, I'm actually getting to know my parents in a way and things about them that I didn't know when I was 20 or 25, what have you. I think those relationships really continue to develop.
Yeah, it will go on like that.
But also for this section, I have to really thank my editor, Michelle Frey, she said, I really want to know, because in the earlier version, the first version of the book that I sold, that scene was different. It wasn't as fully developed.
Yeah.
And Michelle said, I want to know why Michael loves dwarves so much. And asking that question really pushed me to kind of pull that out.
That's the job of good editors.
That was the job of a good editor.
It's the same editor as for Christopher Paolini.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
no, I was really lucky.
She did.
Falling into that.
Yeah. Wonderful. Now your book is a big deal before it's published. What means that?
Only downhill from here.
No. It's going always up. Will be published in 26 languages at the same time. What does it mean for you? Were you surprised in the moment? And how developed it? Did you have an agent or what?
I had an agent. You know when you're writing a book and you're thinking about publishing a book, basically all you hear are horror stories of that either nobody wants to buy your book or somebody decides to buy your book and it sells 2,000 copies and then kind of disappears. So I think when you're writing a book, you have to say, especially if you don't have a contract and you're just kind of doing it on spec, you say, I'm writing this book for myself and that's it.
Yeah.
And so when I finish the book, you finish the book and you write the book that you want to write. And then whatever happens to it after that is sort of golden. Like if something great happens, that's great because you've already done the thing that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
So when it went out and has had this incredible success, it has been quite surreal in many ways. And also sort of fundamentally humbling. Mm-hmm. Whenever you would hear someone say how humbling it was when a great success happened, I was always a little suspicious. I was like, really? It's not awesome? And it turns out it is awesome. Okay. But it is also really humbling because for the longest time, it's just you typing away by yourself, and it's this closed little circle.
Where did you write it?
Oh, in my house, in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's just you and the book in this little circle. And as more people read it, and this has happened, that circle gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah. And so it is really humbling because you actually feel you're part of this larger thing. Yeah. And everybody who reads it and responds to it brings their own sort of like life to it. And that's been amazing.
And this, John Stevens, we talked about families and the meaning of family today. Mm-hmm. Also, there are a lot of divorces, families in Germany. Nearly the half of the weddings and the marriages are divorced. And what does it mean for children? And it's so hard for them. And what is the issue of the family in your book? Why is that so important?
Well, when I grew up, I had a very close family. My parents, my sisters, and I. We grew up in a town where I probably had 20, 25 cousins and aunts and uncles in this town. Yeah. But then as time grew on and we all grew up, we all moved, for the most part, we moved away. And now I live 3,000 miles away from my parents and my sisters. Yeah. And my older sister's just begun of her own family with having twins and what have you. Yeah. And my situation is very similar to many of my friends who live across the country from their parents or their families and what have you. And it's not the way it used to be 50 years ago, 100 years ago, the way it's always been, where families are something you can always depend upon. Yeah. So I think we live in a world now where, unfortunately, that core base of like knowing who you are, knowing the people who are always going to be there for you, is not there anymore. Yeah. And I think people are searching for that. Yeah. So in writing this book, I really wanted to write something where that idea of family was at the core of this book and the trilogy. Yeah. And for me, what that meant was having 3 children who knew that no matter what happened, they would always depend upon each other. They would always be there for each other. Yeah. And also in that passage that we had just read and talked about, where Kate finds out the reason that Michael really has liked dwarves all these years, it's also fascinating for me the way families can continue to evolve. That it's not a static relationship. You're always discovering new things about your people. I mean, the people who are closest to you. Yeah, yeah. That now, when I'm in my late 30s, I know things about my parents. I see them in different ways. We have a different relationship than we had when I was 10, 20, 25. Yeah, you know? The same way now, Kate suddenly realized that Michael loves dwarves because family is so wildly important to them.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. Sure. That's important. Yes.